Homemaker, your property manager with a personality, and we are back with another video. As you guys can see, I have my little one with me today. I am in my anyway era, right? I'm going to do it anyway. So we are here, and I wanted to just chat a bit for something. Of course, we're getting into this whole thing. Y'all gonna hear me say this over and over again, talking about Myron Golden's Make More Offers Challenge. That kind of reignited kind of everything that we're kind of doing in this next season. So all the important links are in the description if you want to join the actual challenge. And before we hop into that, though, we were just going over kind of some requirements, some prerequisites to next level thinking, to next level movement. And one of the things that completely did not come to mind until this weekend was we have to plan to fail. We have to plan to fail. And this is for anything. If you are building anything right now, you will know how important that is. And you will either know it from the side of things that you have failed and you're stuck. You're watching this right now and you are currently in a place where you are stuck because you feel like you have failed and you have taken the term fail and you have used it to describe yourself as a failure, which is incorrect. So you either know it from that perspective or you know it from the perspective of getting up from the other side and you're like, ooh, so that was a long journey up, right? But you know how important it was to make that journey. And I would be doing a disservice to ourselves and to anybody following our journey without mentioning that there is a time, there is a space, there is a season, there's an era for failing. And you have to, in order to be successful, and I know if you're in the space, if you're used to the lingo and all of that, I'm sure most of you guys have heard some version of that. You have to plan to fail or fail forward or fail quickly, whatever the case may be. And all of it is true. All of it is true. What we see happen is that some of us will use failure as an excuse to quit. Some of us will use failure as an excuse to quit, as an excuse to throw it in the towel and say, you know what? That just wasn't meant for me. That wasn't meant for me. Oh, this didn't happen. Oh, it didn't happen the way that it just wasn't meant for me. And we'll throw in the towel. We'll use it as our way or an out to greatness because we were scared of it in the first place. If we were honest, we were scared of it in the first place. So at the first exit that we see, we take it. And usually that comes in the form of failure. But just because something failed, just because you failed at something, does not mean, one, that you're a failure, and two, it doesn't mean that it wasn't meant for you. Failure just indicates, it almost earmarks it, that something may have been the incorrect time. It could have been not meant for that place. It could have been where it's not meant for the person or the method that you were using to get there, right? But failure does not mean quit. And when we plan to fail, what we do is we release ourselves from the clutches of worry, anxiety, and fear. When we plan to fail, we release ourselves from the clutches of worry, anxiety, and fear. Because a part of the reason that we will put on the brakes, a part of the reason that we will stop, a part of the reason that we will change direction, it's because we're worried about something. We're worried that it won't work. We're worried about this. We're fearful of X, Y, and Z. Like, what will people say, or what would they think, or whatever the case may be. That's when we put on the brakes. That's when we stop. But it's important to know and understand that when we plan to fail, when we say, hey, this is an expected thing on this journey, in order to reach any level of success, I must fail, and I must fail quickly, and I must fail forward. When we understand what that looks like, then we have the opportunity to release ourselves from the clutch of fear, worry, and anxiety. We learn to use failure or failing as a catalyst for our next level. We learn to use failing as a catalyst for our next level. Why is that important? Because if we put purpose to failing, we no longer fear it. When we put purpose to failing, we no longer fear it. Now, for me, I learned this the hard way. The hard way. Some of you guys heard me talking about before that we went through a season of literally turning the business what seemed like upside down, going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. And because it was my business, right, becoming our business with my now husband, after we had got married, everything fell back. All accountability fell back on me. So sometimes it became very hard to say, whew, yeah, that was me. Yeah, that one's on me. And I had employees, I would hire employees, I would do all that. Of course, they're supposed to be an extension of me, but at the end of the day, when you are the owner of the thing, it all comes back on you. And one of the things that I had to learn, and I learned it rough. Ooh, I had a rough lesson. I had a really, really, really rough lesson. But one of the things that I had to learn is that I had to take failure as an opportunity to propel me forward. I had to take failure as an opportunity to propel me forward. One example of that was the high turnover that I also mentioned previously. We went through a season of high turnover now, and we're still very committed to having the right person in place. And if and when we find out that they are no longer a good fit, they're just no longer with us. It just is what it is, as simple as that, because we are committed to excellence. And through our commitment to excellence, sometimes that means change in employees, change in team members, right? Change in the people who are executing our services on our behalf. But we went through this whole season and this time for that. And at first it was terrible. It would throw everything up in an uproar, topsy-turvy, all of that. And then it got to a point where we're finally like, okay, wait, let's get a handle on this. So we were able to develop an entirely new hiring process and onboarding program. Now, if you have ever or remember the days where you were a smaller company, then you remember how interesting an onboarding part of the process truly is, especially when you're documenting processes, you're documenting procedures, because up until a certain point, you're doing it all. So sometimes you skip those steps along the way, and now you got to back up and do it correctly. I'm going to put a plug there for all of you building something. If you're in it early enough, please do those things at the laying of the foundation so you don't have to go and backtrack, because it's going to be necessary. And anywho, so we were able to build out an entirely new hiring program and an onboarding process that fit our schedule, fit how transient the position had become, where the first part of onboarding was completely virtual. They were able to learn through how-to guides and videos and things like that, and a whole course essentially that we had set up for coming aboard. And then we would incorporate the hands-on training when and where needed. And all of that, of course, was laid out into the schedule and the plan. I would have never done that, never took the time to sit down and do that had we not had the high turnover. But now we're better for every position moving forward. We are better for every position moving forward because of it. Okay, and that was just one example of many. We also manage community associations in our local area, and especially at the onset of that, getting used to what the needs were and things like that. The first time we really lost one of our largest associations and our largest clients, we were wrecked a little bit, right, initially. And I especially considered that a failure because there were still things that I needed to learn. It was still areas that I needed to grow. And in some areas, you just don't learn until you get hands-on, right? But I still took full accountability and full responsibility for that. And setting a whole new process and whole new procedure in play for our associations became important, right? All of that became important. Check this little one. So the reason why I have not, I'm just gonna address because she's moving around here. The reason why I have not put her down, this is the third time that I have put her down and she still came back to mommy's lap. So I think she wants to stay here for a bit, and it's just trying to get a little comfortable. We'll hop off here in just a minute so we can hopefully get her back in bed. So failing should be fuel. Failing should be fuel to your fire. It should be fuel to your fire. And that's important because the thing that you fear is the thing that cripples you. The thing you fear is the thing that cripples you. And why is that important? It's important because whatever cripples you is the thing that alters your movement. A lot of you are wondering why you're stuck, why you seem to be going around the same circle, the same cycle, those sort of things, because every time failure is on the horizon, you brace yourself, you clench, you do whatever, you freeze instead of facing it. And when you learn how to truly face failure, look it head on, fail fast, fail quickly, right? Fail forward. When you learn how to do those things, you're no longer just bracing yourself. You're no longer restricting your movement. And for some of us, once we brace ourselves, it takes us a very long time to even trust ourselves to move forward again, right? So it's important that we're limiting the amount of times that we are putting a break in that trust of ourselves. The last thing that I will do is I'll leave you with this. Why is this so important? Why is this aspect so important? And we see this even with Jesus. We see this even with Jesus when he goes and he conquers death, right? He conquers death. And you may say, Audrey, what does that have to, what does Jesus conquering death have anything to do with my failure? Well, failure is like the death in living. Failure is like the death in living. And the reason why Jesus had to go conquer death is because he knew that for some people, that some of us had to witness a conquered death before we would ever accept life. Jesus knew that some of us would have to witness a conquered death before we would ever accept life. And it's the same thing when you think about and when you approach failing. You have to approach it from a conquered state. You conquer it when you know that this is just fuel to my fire. You conquer it when you know that this is a catalyst to my next level. You conquer it when you know that this is only going to make me better and bring increase. You conquer it in those particular situations. And when you know that death, that failure has been conquered, then what you do is you accept life. You start. You start the business. You start the movement. You start the process. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get this little one, hopefully get her back down. But y'all take what y'all need, and you get on. You get on about y'all business. I'll see y'all in the next one. Talk to y'all soon.